News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is time for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. We got the whole crew joining us eventually. But it's spring spectacular going around right now. We got Love's Field opening on Friday. The baseball season is well on its way to get to. That's a good start for the baseball team so far. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Josh McQuistion is here. We're going to talk some recruiting and just all things OU. And we can even talk a little football. I know Eddie and George were on with Andy Staples yesterday talking about OU's over-under record. And to be honest with you, when I looked at that schedule, I kind of shit my pants a little bit too. I mean, it's daunting. So
it's a bear.
We're going to talk about all of that. And Josh, welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I mean, I feel like the foreigner. I feel like that becomes more and more the case when the longer the office goes on. I feel like I'm more outside of everything.
Well, you should come see us sometime.
I need to do that.
There's all kinds of noises in the background that you're probably going to hear as we do this podcast. They're starting some sheetrocking today, so it's an exciting day. The office is it's moving along. I've got multiple contractors working with each other. Yesterday was a meeting of the minds day, so we're moving forward. I got to shout out to Oziah on the boards, longtime member of Sooner Scoop. He's done all the electrical in the offices so far, and we pay him. Does a good job. I think it's a fair deal on both sides. So he called me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town about 5:30." This was last weekend to give an estimate on what the electrical is going to take in the new space. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll get up there to the office." And this was on a Saturday. And I said, "By the way, you said you were going to get in from 5:30. Where'd you get in from?" And he said, "Albuquerque." Oziah is driving all the way from Albuquerque just to do our electrical. How insane is that? What a scooper.
There's no way that's a good deal for him. There's no way. This is him doing it because he loves us, and I appreciate that.
I mean, he's a great dude, too. So he's coming back this weekend to do it all, and they're prepping it right now, all the walls for him and everything. It's awesome. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's badass.
So he's just
good representation of the community on Soonerscoop.com.
Yeah, it was the best, man.
And that's an embodied, okay, guys, do you find that kind of stuff funny? Like when you'll meet somebody, and I got to get into this. We'll talk about me meeting some scoopers over the weekend. But in the greater Houston area, no less. It's always funny to me when somebody has kind of an odd name and they pronounce it. I'm like, I've had that differently in my head for 15 years. Like
I thought it was Ozia. I called him Ozia.
Yeah.
But I think
it's funny to hear it when they say it. I'm like, oh.
I don't want to. I mean, he doesn't told me I could give out his real name. That's not his real name. It's just his screen. But
sure.
I think it's kind of like it's religious or something like that, like Haziah or something. Is that a thing?
I have no idea. I'd be the last person to ask about that.
Palestinian conflict if we go too further with this discussion. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it is, and we always say that when you meet people, and not like Oziah is a big pain in the ass on the board. He's a very chill dude. But even the guys that are super huge personalities, they're sweethearts in real life usually. So anyway, so
that is, yeah.
No, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was going to say that is one of those things you realize, like, there are, and it's just the part of being on a message board. Like, I hear people all the time, like, how can you spend all your time doing that? Because you get to know these guys, and they're just like anybody else. It's just the message board can sometimes take your worst inclinations and just magnify them, and you become more of whatever that thing is.
Now, that doesn't mean that we don't enjoy the crazy, because I've even floated around doing a kind of like a video update of the craziest message board posts of the week, which I'm not trying to promote craziness, but sometimes you just have to laugh at it all. And plus, we kind of want people on the outside to know how nuts it can be sometimes.
Yeah, Sooner Scoop geniuses. I love it. Yeah, perfect.
So, anyway, it is spring spectacular around here. All kinds of stuff going around. Eddie, our baseball expert. Bob's our softball expert. Softball, Patty Gasso. Like, just kind of what's funny is like they're 66 in a row now?
67.
67 in a row now. And you would think like everything's going great, but Patty's always kind of, you don't know if she's going to be mad at people for something or she's not happy with this or that. Like what's Patty's mood right now?
Nah, message was received. They were not happy after the first 2 weekends. They played really well at the Mary Nutter. I get it. Their draw wasn't the toughest, but they took care of it just like you're supposed to do as the number 1 ranked team. And so now you're going basically the entire conversation, myself included, was all about Love's Field and just kind of reflecting on the state of the program when Marita Hines Field was first created and how far we've come and what Patty's role has been in that, what OU's role has been in that, and just a trip down memory lane was basically what Tuesday night was all about.
It seems like Friday, obviously, with the opening of the stadium, the dedication, everything that comes with that, it's going to be a little bit of, it's like you said, a celebration of kind of how far this program has come along, obviously how much Patty has invested in the program, and it's going to be a really cool scene, I think. I think it's going to be awesome. We talked to JT Gasso on the radio program. Is like, yeah, I grew up across the street at the other ballpark, at Reeves Park when they played over there, and it's just incredible to see kind of what they've been able to build. And, a lot of the stuff that they built the program on, 25 plus years ago is the same stuff that they're currently building the program or continuing to run the program on. And so it's very cool to see.
And then that's why Friday, I think just balancing the emotion is going to be very intriguing, not just with the players, but with Patty. Like, as she's gotten older, she has said, I've learned to soak in more moments. She always mentions the OU Texas game from last year, Hall of Fame Stadium, being able to enjoy that 9,000 people are here to watch a regular season softball game. And so Friday is just going to be a whirlwind, just a roller coaster. And then there's going to come a point in time where it's 2 o'clock. It's time to get the job done again. And how quickly can they turn that switch from embracing the moment, celebrating everything that they've worked to earn this type of weekend, to then realizing, oh yeah, now we got to go out and play.
I just hope, and I don't know why it would be so emotional like it was towards the end of last season, because you just, like all the emotions last year, a lot of it was about the pressure they were facing. And now this is just a celebration. Just go out and enjoy it. I'm sure the players are going to be like, when's this part going to get done? Like, because there's going to be, it's an unfinished deal. I mean, they've got it to a point where they can play on it.
They will be shuttling back and forth. To go back to last week, they will be taking batting practice, Marita Hines, and they will be shuttling in a bus.
I told you, shuttle.
Yeah, I mean, that's
everybody's like, they can just walk over there. No, they're not going to get shuttle buses.
It'd be way too long of a walk. You'd have way too many of the commoners trying to get at them. But I mean, they'll have a little bus shuttle, and yeah, because I mean, it won't be until probably mid-April to where they're actually finally home.
I wonder, there's so many things I wonder about the ballpark. Like, will they do it up like they have like a walk of champions over there before a game and stuff like that? And when they drop them off they'll come from somewhere, I would assume. But I mean, I guess they'll have parking over there, so they probably won't have all that. But maybe game day they do something different.
Yeah,
for a big series or something.
Really not sure. I'm just intrigued to see as they learn about the park itself. Like I bet at this point, Jada Coleman, Riley Boone, they know how to play every single carom. They know as soon as that ball is hit, okay, this is how it's going to go.
Is the park bigger than Marita Hines? Is it the same? Like the dimension?
Oh, dimension. I
wonder
don't
if foul
know.
territory might have more. I mean, it just looks bigger. But yeah,
there might be a little bit more room just from pictures. Yeah. There might be a little bit more room on the foul lines, maybe behind the plate. But I really don't know. That's a good question.
I would think that Patty would be happy if they just recreated Marita Hines' dimensions.
Sure.
I mean, it's treated her pretty well. So, but any idea who will get the start on the mound for the first?
Doesn't have to be May. 4-year starter. She's been
more so than Maxwell. I would think.
Yeah, she's been part of this. She's helped bring this to life with the way that she's performed. She's not the 1-year rental type of transfer. This is the 4-year
You're
pitcher.
in trouble with Kelly Maxwell now.
But I mean, like, this is what you've earned this moment, and she's earned it based on the way that she's pitched through the first 3 weekends. There's no doubt Kelly's going to be in a bunch during the next 5 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But for this moment itself, I don't think there's a better embodiment than to put Nicole May out there.
I feel like I'm just coming up with Vegas props. Like, are they gonna bring the national championship trophy out there before they play for the home fans for the first time?
That'd be just we've been wondering who's gonna hit the first home run, first strikeout. All that type of stuff. That's why I'm wondering about the emotions and how quickly can they. Just kind of turn it off and say, this afternoon is incredible and something I'll remember forever. But now I got to go out there and get the job done.
And, oh, by the way, they're playing pretty good softball right now. Like, it's just incredible to me. The win streak, it's probably going to get into the 80s, I would think, before they get into
You love what
play.
Baylor did at Mary Nutter. That Baylor series now coming up in late March might actually be one to watch after what the Bears did. I know they didn't get a bump in one of the rankings, like number 21, but they went to number 10 in another one of them. And, I mean, the run that they had might make it interesting. But, yeah, if OU plays like they did last weekend. And what you loved about last weekend is you saw games where, like, Ella Parker and Riley Ludlam were taking over, the new faces. And then you saw games where, like, Jada Coleman, Tiara Jennings. Like, this is just a perfect mix and match of – you got the newbies, the returners. Then Kirsten Deal is the pitcher that gets the first 7-inning complete game of the season. It's not Maxwell. It's not May. It's Kirsten. And you just see, like, they just keep coming.
How's the shortstop situation playing out?
I think Jennings is doing fine there. I don't think that's going to be a concern going forward. I still don't know if anyone will have that type of defensive prowess of Grace Lyons, but Tiara can more than hold her own there. She was a shortstop, growing up. And that's a very common theme, something we talked to Patty about last year. So many shortstops get recruited and then learn they weren't Grace Lyons, and they had to figure out where else they could fit. Now Tiara can go back to her natural spot that she used to play, and then it's just about seeing with second base, Avery Hodge, Lilio, Lena Torres, and that'll work itself out. But their defense and their pitching has been tremendous. And then last weekend, the hitting started to come up to par too.
Is there anybody that kind of, so far in this early part of the season, that is kind of been that player that was, okay a year ago, but is really starting to, you see them kind of developing into maybe a star?
If Riley Boone qualifies, that's who I would say. I think she's even better than what she had been during the last couple of years. But I think she was really good to begin with.
Yeah,
so there's levels, I guess. There's what makes you qualify there. I think through the first 3 weekends would be that Ella Parker seems like another freshman sensation that is ready for this moment. We got to talk to her Tuesday night, very calm in that type of environment and just enjoying what is going on right now and embracing what this weekend is all going to be about, and just trying to see who's going to earn their way into that starting lineup. Is that starting lineup something that's going to stay where it's at in March and April, because some of these girls won't let some of these new girls try to get that spot?
All right, on the baseball side of things, obviously you're going to talk to Skip Johnson later on today.
Yeah, they're headed out to Vegas this weekend. Coming off of a nice weekend, you win 3 of 4 against Wright State, who was a preseason favorite in the Horizon. Got their ass kicked on Sunday. I don't think that there's really anything to look into that. Jamie Hitt was not very good on Sunday afternoon. He got banged around quite a bit, but you look at the other 3 games, a 20-0 win. They swept a doubleheader on Saturday, 14-9, 10-3. Just continued momentum from what was a really good opening weekend. So, Dallas Baptist beat Oklahoma State on Tuesday night. They're off to their best start in school history, I believe, at 8-0. Dallas Baptist is. So, can't really complain. You go out to Las Vegas this weekend. I don't think that Pittsburgh's very good. I think they're okay. Same to be said for Ohio State. I think Cal's playing pretty well right now, so it'll be another good test to kind of see where this thing is at and see if the offense can continue to roll, see if the pitching staff can continue to get outs. I think Friday night the number was 15 strikeouts for that group. Brendan Davis was excellent yet again in a 20-0 victory. When you're talking about a pitcher, he must have done something right. Career high 8 strikeouts. So it was a all in all pretty good start. 5-3 overall, and we shall see. A lot of power over the weekend at the home opener. So it will be kind of interesting, kind of fun to see how this thing unfolds.
We talked a lot. You go back to the World Series run. John Spikerman and Nicholas were so big.
Yeah.
Then they kind of, everybody expected, the expectations were so high coming into last year. It seems like Spikerman's the guy that's kind of regained his edge a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that they both have a little bit. I talked to Jackson last week during the midweek before they opened the Wright State Series, and we talked about kind of his struggles at the end of the year that were well documented, at second and as well as hitting. And he kind of gave the insinuation that he needed to grow up a little bit, him and John. So Spike's off to a great start. He did leave the game on Sunday with an injury out in center field, but I think it was a precautionary. I don't even think. Skip said it was a precautionary thing. He should be full go this weekend. And
those two kind of do they play off of each other a little bit?
Yeah, like they're best friends, roommates. I think that both of those guys, they're both going to be catalysts. If Oklahoma's going to get to where they want to be, you're going to need those guys to be really, really good. And you've seen through the first 8 games of the season, Spikerman's hitting the cover off the ball. He's been really, really good, and he's part of an outfield that is going to be extremely good with Kendall Pettis as well as Bryce Madron. I think it is going to be interesting moving forward is how they're going to get a bunch of at-bats for some of these guys, whether it be a Carter Frederick, whether it be a Rocco Garza Gongora, or a Garza Gongora. I always get those two mixed up. With Anthony McKenzie coming back to the fold into the lineup. He started all 4 games last week. He can play anywhere on the infield. It's just going to be kind of interesting to see how they pick and choose. Are they going to continue catching Scott Mulder or Mudler? If that's what they end up doing, that kind of takes away the DH with Easton Carmichael. You want his bat into the lineup because he's been hitting the ball extremely well. So they have plenty of options. I guess it's a good problem to have. It's something that we've talked to Skep about multiple times here throughout the first couple weeks of the season. Was they have a lot of interesting decisions to be made as far as lineup.
And the Vegas, is that an ESPN Plus deal?
No, it's actually D1 Baseball.
Okay.
D1Baseball.com is kind of the sponsor of the event out there. The Las Vegas College Baseball Classic.
Kendall Rogers joint.
Yeah, Kendall Rogers and all those guys. Aaron Fitt, they do a really good job covering the sport. And you'll have to, I think it's a subscription type deal if you want to watch the games this weekend.
All right, it is our fresh perspective brought to you by Enjoy. Looking around the world of OU athletics, and we're proud, I guess, to have the official spokesperson for Enjoy Vision sitting next to us with his perfect vision.
Very proud. We could put this sheet of paper across the hall and I'd be able to see it. Enjoy Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. Combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the Unofficial 40 listener is they're giving $400 off. If you are interested in LASIK, all you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com. Use promo code U40 for $400 off of LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
I don't know what you're talking about. That I didn't see you read anything right there.
Well, I haven't memorized.
Talent.
If I needed a cheat sheet, we could put it across the room. It would be very easy.
Appreciate the fine folks at Enjoy Vision. Josh McQuistion, let's bring you in here. We won't get into basketball just yet. I don't know. I guess we should because we don't know how long you're going to be here. George is coming back, and
exactly.
But hey, you couldn't be in a better place right now, coming off of a Bedlam victory. I saw the JV and McCollum T-shirts going on sale. Not sure how many of those are going to fly out the window, but I don't know. If I had to choose, I'd take the Rivaldo Suarez T-shirt over the JV McCollum, even though it was a big shot. But his return was just such a massive lift for the Sooners.
And not just an emotional lift, just the way that he played. I mean, him and Jalen Moore, as we talked about Monday, those were the two that carried this team through the first half when they looked dead in the water. They were lifeless. They looked like they were about to lose by 15, 20 points with ease. It's going to be Mike Boynton's celebration, his, like, I'm saving my job type of moment.
Ripping my coat off.
Yes. And then instead, Suarez just played lights out, especially in the second half, too, with the scoring. He took over that first part of the second half to where Ortega, Javion McCollum could come up big going down the stretch. And I don't know if Suarez will ever get back to 100% this entire season.
It's been a while. That must have been a pretty high ankle sprain.
Yeah, I mean, and especially because now...
And you thought he might not even play after he came out for the first time and hobbled around a little bit.
when he tweaked it. And so you know that he's not going to let himself sit. You can just get that feeling from him. This is my last guaranteed games. I'm not going to miss it unless my ankle's like broken. But I wonder, how far he can get with that ankle not being even close to 100%.
Incredible effort, performance. It was almost somewhat inspiring. And for Oklahoma to get out of Stillwater with a win, certainly I don't think it would have been done without his presence on the floor. Javion McCollum hitting a shot that's going to go down in Oklahoma basketball lore as far as one of the bigger shots in program history, just for what that set of circumstances was and the must need to win that game. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to build off of that with the schedule ahead. And Iowa State on Wednesday night this week in Ames, obviously going to be extremely tough. I don't think that you're going to be able to get 54 points in the paint like they did in Stillwater against Oklahoma State. So it's a tough ask. Then you got the number one team in the country in the Houston Cougars coming to town, which I think is going to be a really cool scene on Saturday night with the return of Kelvin Sampson. But as well as Hollis Price, Quantas White, Kellen Sampson, everybody that's a part of the Houston program now. But I think that it's kind of a basis of just survive these next 2 weeks, find yourself in Kansas City, maybe get some opportunity there, and then get into the NCAA tournament, which ultimately is going to be probably come down to, are you going to beat Cincinnati next week?
Yeah, I mean, we've said all along, just get to 20. They got 19. They made their lives a heck of a lot easier here going down the stretch. We'll see what tonight looks like. Hilton Coliseum, no one's won there the entire season. Nothing to suggest that OU would be the first team to be able to do that. And the only
I've
way
always hated that place, by the way.
I mean, the only way it's going to happen is if they just make a bunch of threes. I mean, that's what Porter said Tuesday's not wrong. It's like, if it's so hard to get to the basket against Cyclone's defense, you're going to have to make a lot of shots, and that's going to be, you're going to need Javion, you're going to need Los, you're going to need Luke Northweather to hit at least 2 or 3. You're just going to have to get contributions from all different guys multiple times. It's not going to be enough to just hit like one. You're going to need to hit 2 or 3 to try to be in this thing, and I don't see it happening. And then you go in with it's a free attitude against Houston. Like, you're not expected to win that one, so just go out there and play the best game that maybe you can possibly play in front of the home crowd. 7 o'clock tip, very different compared to what we've seen throughout the entire conference season. Going to be a packed house, a great environment, welcoming back Sampson, and then see if you can pull off the upset and maybe get a court storming.
Wouldn't that be the special ending to how this week has begun with all the court storming controversy coming out of Wake Forest over the weekend? But yeah, like it was a very inspiring effort with what they gave out in Stillwater, and just to keep it
you
close.
Guys did the hoops report already, and that's up on YouTube, by the way. You go check it out. And I have never seen Porter that in the post-game press conference. I have never seen him that either just elated or fired up or just jumping out of his seat. I mean, that's a different side of Porter than we've seen in a long time.
He never said it, but I felt the same way the way Boynton said, I've never wanted a game like more than this. Like, I think Porter
and his record hadn't been great against them.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's his first win ever in Stillwater, and you love that they got the sweep this year, because this was, if it wasn't obviously this year, who knows when it would have been, but also because this was the year you could actually do it. You had the better team, be the better team on those 2 days and get the job done. But yeah, I mean, when you, as much as Porter doesn't love to look ahead, everyone knew it. You were at Baylor, home against Kansas, and then you were at Iowa State and home against Houston. You had this game sandwiched in the middle, that if you didn't get it, you were staring a 5-game losing streak right in the face. And now instead, you're coming off one of the biggest highs you've been on in a long, long time, probably the biggest high under Porter Moser, and seeing can any of that carry over either tonight or especially going into Saturday against the Cougs.
By the way, I think Bob Przybylo needs a little credit here. And it's not like he's just changed things or blown things up, but Luke Norweather's been pretty decent. I mean, and it wasn't just, it's not just when he hits threes. He's kind of learning how to play tougher down low, get his body in position to make some plays. I've been impressed with what I've seen from him, especially in Bedlam.
Yeah, I mean, the second game against Kansas was the worst moment of his young career here as a Sooner, but he was able to pick it back up. And I think some of that comes with knowing John Hughley is out. Not that he's trying to get back. There's clarity there. You had the surgery. Luke, it's your time. We need you to be the second option at the 5. We can go with Jalen Moore, but we want you to earn the right to keep getting the minutes and keep producing. And that's what he did Saturday in terms of getting rebounds, getting the points, getting assists, getting one block. Like, that's going to be enough. He doesn't need to be a 10 and 8 guy. 5 and 3, you hope maybe a little bit more, but as long as he looks like he's in the flow, in the rhythm, no deer in the headlights look like he did against Jayhawks, that's going to work. That's always going to work for Porter.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Otega Owe continues to play, I mean, like he did Saturday. Maybe they have a shot at getting 2 of these last 3?
Yes, that's the biggest thing is, I don't know if Javion McCollum is ever going to find that shot again. You love that he missed his first 7 threes and just kept taking them and makes the final 2. But nothing Otega did in the second half and overtime is asking him to do too much for what he's capable of compared to what he'd been trying to do during the last 3-4 weeks of the season, is just play at a different level that he was
so comfortable on Saturday. Like, getting into the lane, it didn't look like the bull in a china shop that I think we had been so, unfortunately, used to seeing here over the last month. I just don't know what it was. It was like when he came in off the bench after Jalen Moore picked up his 3rd, it was a completely different player.
Maybe
Even than what you saw.
Maybe it was him watching the refs not call any fouls when OSU drove to the basket time and time again.
Possibly.
Also being benched. We know Porter tried to not make a big deal about it, but if you're Otega and it's the first time the entire season you're not starting the second half, a little bit of a wake-up call, and then him and Sword playing together is actually what kind of got the team back going. But there was, again, nothing he did. It was all around the basket, just really smart, heady plays compared to what he'd done in the first half with that air ball 3. That was one of the worst decisions of the entire season. And, just being deliberate, not being so fast, going at one speed to where you can't adjust. If that Otega shows up in Ames, then you get very confident and very kind of excited about what the ceiling might look like during the next 2-3 weeks.
All right. Well, what's left here. You got 3 games left. Need to win at least one to...
About 4.
Or 4 games left, yeah. And need that Cincinnati win. So it's Baylor, or it's
Iowa State, Houston, Cincinnati.
Then at Texas.
At Texas.
At Texas to finish
and
off.
Texas coming off of a
what
big
Texas
win.
just did. They needed that.
Yeah, they did, because they were staring 6-9 in the face, and all of a sudden they go out to Lubbock, kind of beat that ass on Tuesday night.
By the way, please recycle Lubbock, would you?
Yeah, they need to. They were throwing liquor bottles on the floor on Tuesday night. That was an ugly scene that turned into, I think, something that we have seen time and time again in our trips out to
Brock
Lubbock.
Cunningham would be the guy. If there's one guy that elicits that type of reaction, it's Brock.
100%. He's been a thorn in a lot of people's sides, including Oklahoma, including Texas Tech. I kind of like it. That college basketball needs more of those types of guys that we saw in the 80s and the 90s.
The
people
Derek Grimms and the what was his name?
Jason Sutherland's from Missouri. Gabe Manecki was kind of like that at Texas.
Speaking of Kelvin coming back, that's when he took the microphone.
100%. Those are the types of guys that college basketball needs to be able to survive. And, I thought that Texas looked very impressive. I thought the Shedrick kid, yet again, in most of Texas's wins, he ends up playing a big role, and he did last night. And then, obviously, the big win in the Big 12 last night was BYU going to the Fog and winning. And, as much as like OU is a different team without Rivaldo Suarez, I think the same could be said for Kansas. And when they don't have Kevin McCullough, that is a team that is, by Kansas standards, very, very average.
That's the one OU fans are still having trouble getting over. That Suarez, Hughley are out, and McCullough is back just for that game in Norman, to where OU has the 11-point lead and can't finish. But yeah, they definitely are a different team, and it's usually been on the road. Obviously, that's the first time they've lost at home. But that BYU win, I mean, we talk about resume. That, again, that's a win the Sooners locked up a while ago. That Iowa State, those keep carrying the weight, and that's what you love, because you start looking around. Again, we don't believe OU's on the bubble, but you start looking at some of these bubble teams and like, where are their resume wins? And when you look at OU, they've actually have them this season. They just have to not fall flat on their face during these final 2 weeks.
All right. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's your spring practice. George will come and talk a little bit about the women's program. Of course, they're playing Texas coming up. And Eddie pointed this out first. I mean, Jenny Baranchik and her comments on fans coming in for Texas was just fantastic, and you can find that on the YouTube editorial page. But and we'll get into more of that with George as well. But Josh, let's hit some recruiting here before we welcome in George and Bob's here. But I know it's a little bit of a slow week still, but it's getting ready to ramp up. Recruiting report on YouTube will be back next week. But just kind of give us the latest on exactly what kind of movements out there for Oklahoma with recruiting right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that you're seeing probably the most is a lot of what Oklahoma did. And we talked about all those offers in January and February, and some of them were well-known names, some of them weren't. And then you're seeing some of the updates. I don't think anybody else, but I know Rivals and On3 both updated their rankings this week, and you saw a lot of reflection of guys that, I had people like, who is this guy, Josh? Who did OU just offer? Well, now he's like a top 50 guy in the country, kid from Houston, the Arogbo Smith kid that is notable. Smith Arogbo, I want to flip it every time. And then you've got the Marion Dye kid from Indiana. So I think more than anything, you're seeing that continuation that we've talked about, where Oklahoma's doing a really nice job with their evaluations. They're going coast to coast to find guys. It's just a good sign to me. And it's not that the rankings mean everything, but when more people are putting eyes on these guys and are seeing the same things, I think that's a good indication of where Oklahoma is as a staff and how kind of advanced they are with their evals right now.
Josh, you mentioned the offers. Commitments got a bump too, especially their newest one. What was your overall take from the OU commitment side of that?
Yeah, I wrote a story on Monday about it, and I think of the 5 guys that were in the class, it was something like an average jump of like 34 spots or something like that. I mean, they had several guys make big leaps. Now, they had a couple falls as well, but the guy, you're referencing really that made the big jump was Ryan Foje, the offensive lineman from Bridgeland in North Houston. A guy that, guys, when I went and saw him, and I remember doing the recruiting report with Eddie and George, and we talked about it, I came away just blown away with his potential. Like he was a guy like I talk about all the time. I remember, going through a couple years ago, I kind of had the same fascination with Logan Howland and what I thought he could be. But guys that are 6'5", 6'6", 260 and move like that, that's just really hard to find. And so I keep having people ask me, well, like, Josh, what's Oklahoma's offensive line class going to look like? Is the tackle group going to be good with guys like Fasusi and Haywood? I'm like, guys, I think they've already got a really, really good one. And I honestly only think Ryan Foje is going to climb as he gets more senior film, continues to add to that frame. He's obviously a kid I'm going to go see this spring here in Houston. And again, like I said, seeing him in person, the guy that everybody knew was Jonte Newman, and Jonte's an outstanding player as well, don't get me wrong. But as far as like ceiling for an offensive tackle, Ryan Foje has more room to grow into that role. And something our guy Cody Belair talked a lot about is he's still incredibly young, guys. Like I think he turns 17 like in December of his senior year or something. So he's still really, really young for his class.
The number one thing that stood out to me is we're here in the state. We feel like we know every single name. Bixby always has good recruits, never elite ones. Where did this come from?
Broderick Scholl, the big offensive lineman from Bixby, a guy that, honestly, guys, I dumb lucked into him last year. He had just moved to Bixby like a week before I went to one of their summer practices because I was up there last year kind of on an off day between one of OU's camp days. And I was like, well, let me just go up here and see Bixby. And I really thought the biggest thing I was going to do that day was Danny Okoye was kind of hanging out on the sidelines, and we talked a little bit and that kind of thing. But I had someone hit me up and was like, hey, they got this move in at Bixby. You got to go check this kid out. And Bixby had 2 offensive tackles that signed. One is going to walk on at Oklahoma, and another one I think signed at South Dakota State, or I can't remember exactly where. But, I mean, Bixby had 2 really good bookend tackles. And they were like, this kid's really, really good. And you watched his junior tape. And, I mean, I thought definitely a top 250 guy in the country. Again, kind of like Foje, moves really naturally, very light on his feet. But he's a finisher as well. So, I'm not shocked at all that On3 took a real shine to him. Now, number 18 in the country, I can't say that I was predicting anything like that, but this is a really good player. And I would say of the 20 years I've done this, 18 of them, Oklahoma has probably already offered this kid and is all over him. But talking to some people, I think it's more a reflection of Oklahoma really liking where they are with a couple of guys like Fasusi and Haywood and some of those names I know OU fans are familiar with.
Is this one of those things where Scholl is your number one guy in 2024 and now he's just fighting to see if he can get involved in 2025?
It's insane, guys. This offensive tackle class is unbelievable. And, you throw in, again, like Broderick Scholl last year, probably would have been the number 1 offensive tackle on OU's board. Especially if you look at it from a regional perspective, as far as guys that are nearby that they really were going to have a chance with. I could make a case that Blake Cherry would be in that conversation, the kid from Owasso that's also a really good player. But this year, it's not just that there's a lot of good tackles in the country. They're in Dallas. They're in Kansas City. They're all so local to, or to regional to Oklahoma. Yeah. That it just, again, it's a lot like D-line last year, where it's just a rare opportunity that it seems like Oklahoma is starting to line themselves up to take advantage of, but obviously you got to get it over the finish line.
Were you a little surprised that Elijah Thomas dropped?
I was, because I thought Elijah had a great junior year. Saw him live in a big rivalry game for them against Eufaula, and I thought he
looked incredible. The highlights you sent back were awesome.
Well, and again, it's one of those things where if a guy falls 20 spots, and I can't remember, Elijah fell more than that, but I don't think it was a lot more than that. If I remember, I think it was like 30 spots or something like that. If a guy falls 20 spoats, that's often about other guys moving them forward. Yeah, like I'm talking about the Dye kid from Indiana that nobody really knew, and he's a defensive end. I would value him over a receiver. Plus, he's a freakish talent. So some of that you can just kind of understand, especially this time of year where there's so many guys going from unrated and didn't even have stars 2 days ago, and now they're top 20 guys in the country, like a guy like Broderick Scholl being a perfect example. Well, inherently guys have to fall down, but it did surprise me on its face that he fell down. But there were a couple, and I like Cody Belair and I like Charles Power. I enjoy talking with those guys and kind of picking their brain about what they're looking at and what they see. But I would say for me, of all the ones that are related to OU, Andrew Marsh baffles me. Andrew Marsh felt like 200 spots, and I don't get that one at all. That.
Really?
Yeah, he's like 222 or something now, and Andrew Marsh may have been the best single game performance I saw last year. He was absolutely amazing. And I don't know that I think he is a top 20 guy in the country because he's not 6'4". He doesn't run 4.3. Like, I mean, he's not that physical marvel that you usually see. You know, he's not Marvin Harrison. These guys that are just unbelievable. But the production, he plays in a really good district. I mean, like, they're, you know, if you wanted to tell me, okay, we're going to drop him down to 100, okay, I can get there with you on that. But into the 200s, like, I can't imagine there's any receiver in that range that's anywhere near his productivity.
I guess looking at Future Freaks, which obviously will be their next big event, any new names in the last week, or is it still looking pretty solid?
It's still, I mean, there's been a few additions. Markel Ford, the safety from Mesquite Horn, he's going to be in. Was able to add several guys from Southern Oklahoma, kind of, you know, the Sean Cooper, the C4 guys, okay. Joshua Rushing, Quincy Shelton from Hugo, who's a really interesting guy on tape. A guy that I confirmed sometime around this point last week was DeQuayne Prevost, the big kind of receiver from Liberty ALU in Texarkana. Big time guy. One of OU's first offers in the entire 2026 class nationally. So it's a guy they like a lot. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be his first trip to Norman. So obviously that's big for Oklahoma. And I guess I would say one of the other really notable ones is Drew Evers, offensive lineman from Flower Mound, younger brother of Nick. I think some people had expected that there was going to be some hard feelings with the Evers in Oklahoma, and you don't get that. I mean, they were there this summer. They camped. They like Bill a lot. And, you know, I think they want to see what that's going to be like. And it's interesting to note when you think about it, a lot of the people that Nick was recruited by, I mean, obviously he was very much a Jeff Lebby guy. Jeff Lebby's gone. So, like, they almost you can look at that as good or bad from, okay, now there's new relationships that have to be built, and we have to see what that's going to look like. And talking to Drew's dad, you know, have known him a while. I genuinely think Oklahoma has a chance there. I don't think they're the leader by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if a few things turned right, Oklahoma could absolutely have a chance.
Josh, you realize what you've done? You've mentioned Mesquite Horn, which has sent me down the rabbit hole of what's Chris Robinson doing now.
Okay.
He is in Germany. He signed with the Straubing Spiders.
No shit.
Yes.
Wait, Chris?
That is unbelievable.
Still playing.
This came out just earlier this month. Straubing Spiders of the German Football League, GFL, have announced the signing of Florida Atlantic University quarterback Chris Robinson for the 2023 season. Oh, this was 2 years ago.
Oh, no.
To show how old I am, like, I heard Carey say he's playing in Germany, and my mind went to the old World Football League. Or
Absolutely.
He's going to say the Rhine Fire.
Kelly Gregg.
I know what he's going to say. I was ready for it.
Kelly Gregg was a prominent member of the Germany Football League, wasn't he? I think that's kind of where he got his start, and then he got signed to the NFL.
I hate to stereotype, but that seems like one of the countries where football is really growing. In
I don't
Europe.
think so. Yeah, I know that he spent some time in Germany playing.
Maybe it was between the Chiefs and the Ravens.
Possibly.
I'm pretty sure he went into the league right out of high school or out of college. Yeah. No, I do. It is funny. This article does mention his time at Oklahoma, which, I mean, that's about he's as much an Oklahoma football player as all of us were, wasn't he? No?
One semester.
Man. I mean, the other thing that when you say Mesquite Horn, all I think about is sitting there watching on the field as Lincoln Riley made him his first quarterback offer.
Yeah, Kelly Gregg was a 1999 NFL draft selection by the Cincinnati Bengals, actually.
Okay, yeah.
Spent 1 year over there.
One year over in Germany?
Do you think there's a guy that
with Cincinnati?
Do
you think there's a guy that goes kind of more, I don't want to say forgotten because that's not fair to him at all, but like more under the, if you asked like OU fans who had a really great NFL career, I don't think he would come to the top of the list for a lot of people, and he really should. The guy played
12 years.
A huge role in a great defense. Yeah.
He was a stalwart on that Ravens defense.
99 to 2011, and spent the majority of his time, obviously, with the Ravens from 2000 to 2010.
The defense.
They were really good.
I don't know how to get to the roster on this Germany Straben Spiders website. It's all in German.
I think that's.
I can't even deny cookies.
I think that is probably the
Dotchen,
way.
Schlutchen, Stellenjun.
That's the way that it's supposed to be.
Wir werden cookies and der Technologien auf un Server website.
Okay, I've got Google Translate on. I'm looking.
Hold on. I'm just trying to see if he's still on the roster.
If the franchise
I
still
think
exists.
alle acceptieren means accept cookies.
Oh, bullshit. The Straubling Spiders GFL, like I go to their current roster and it says coming soon. So all
this might just
they gotta go through their draft. They gotta have
this
their
might be
draft
as big a
coming up.
fraud as his OU football career. Maybe they don't even exist. Maybe this is all. Maybe it's just all AI pictures that have been generated.
Would still have him with his hands.
Has like 8 fingers.
No, his prayer hands.
Oh yeah,
Would it still have? Would
that's
that
Bob's
be
favorite picture ever, and the yellow.
AI generated? Would
Or
be
it's the glasses, I think, that make that
it is
picture.
the glasses.
the glasses do it for sure. Like, and I want to say, I think Bob could do a fairly decent replication of that picture.
Ooh, you're not.
I could
kidding.
see Bob
You're
doing
not
it.
kidding. I didn't realize that was the connection there. All right. Anything else you wanted to hit on recruiting, and then we'll let Bob slowly walk out the door.
Again, I mean, we talked rankings, so no, I think we cover. Again, and I know people are dying for it. Next week, things should start to pick back up. We're going to have more confirmations. There's going to be more guys setting up their visits. It's going to get more interesting this month as kids start getting back to campus again.
All right. By the way, he competed against the Munich Cowboys and the IMF Razorbacks of Ravensburg. I wonder if Daniel Akinkumi knows a lot about that league.
Probably not.
He's not a huge soccer guy. Like, I don't know why I said soccer. He's not like, I guess, I don't know how much Daniel loved things other than basketball. He was a big basketball guy, and then kind of and so I bet you he could talk to you about some Euro basketball for sure.
He's probably seen Vasily Micic a little bit. By the way, rest in peace, Poku. Not that he's dead, but he's in Charlotte.
Might as well be dead.
Might as well be.
I think
Trey Mann's starting for them right now. So, welcome in, George Stoya.
What's up? What did I miss?
Not much, really. I mean, we haven't talked about women's basketball yet, which I know Josh is very... Josh, would you say you like women's basketball just because you have daughters, maybe more than men's basketball?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I understand that most aren't going to feel that way, but yeah, like, I enjoy watching OU's women's team probably more. Just, I like the way they play a little bit better.
Yeah, they definitely like to go fast, shoot a lot of threes. And they've just been on fire lately. I mean, they just crushed Oklahoma State this past weekend.
Well, I mean, Sherry just left that team. They were so unathletic when she stepped down. I mean, they just... And that was what she was known for earlier in her career when she had success, is that they were as athletic. I mean, like...
And I wouldn't say they're super athletic now either. They just have a lot of players that make plays, if that they've got a lot of girls that look for the open man and can shoot the ball. I mean, they've got a lot of. I mean, every player on the court can shoot from beyond the arc. They've got a couple big girls that are able to post up down low, but also shoot it from outside. And I think Jenny's just done a really good job of finding players that fit her system, which is a very fast and unique system in terms of the way they play. I mean, they're one of the fastest paced teams in women's basketball right now, and they shoot a lot of shots. I think they have one of the highest attempts per game in the country right now. So I think she's just found it's not like they're sitting out there and you watch South Carolina play basketball. That's an athletic basketball team. LSU, very athletic basketball team. Jenny's team isn't going to jump off the page in terms of athleticism, but they've just got a ton of playmakers on the court.
Turnovers have been down, and they've shot the ball very well.
Yeah.
That's the key for them.
Lexi Keys has been really good from beyond the arc. Peyton Verhulst has been really good beyond the arc. Sahara Williams, The McDonald's All-American true freshman has been fantastic just everywhere for them. Skylar Van's kind of their rock. Like, you're going to get 15 and 10 from her every single night, and possibly more. So they've been really good, and they're 8, 9, 10 deep sometimes. I mean, they play a lot of girls in the game. They've got a pretty good rotation. So we'll see. They got a big one tonight against number 3 Texas. Texas has been phenomenal.
Since Oklahoma,
they've not lost.
Texas and Austin, they've been maybe one of the better teams in the country outside of South Carolina.
I mean, right now they're projected as a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So Texas is really, really good. And so winner tonight wins the Big 12. Now Oklahoma can lose tonight and then win on Saturday and in Lawrence and still win a share of the Big 12. But tonight's a pretty big game, and I bet there's a pretty good crowd tonight at the LNC.
Yeah, I think Texas was the number 10 ranked team when they beat them in Austin.
Yep.
And now they're all the way up to number 3. So
yep, they've been playing really well, and they've also got a really just talented and they're super athletic, and they can shoot the rock, and that they've got a really good team.
So let me get this straight. They win tonight. They claim
the Big 12 outright.
The Big 12 outright.
Right. If they lose tonight, they can still get a share of the Big. They'll split it with Texas. If Texas wins tonight, they win the Big 12, at least a share of it.
Okay.
Either OU or Texas is going to win the league.
But they both could win the league.
Yes.
Okay. Outside of that, I watched you guys on with Andy Staples yesterday. It's very nice of you to have him on your show.
I mean, yeah, it is our show. Me and Eddie kind of...
you did dominate that thing.
We did. But I mean, I think he wanted us to kind of dominate.
No, he likes
that.
you guys, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just talking about the over-under 7.5 wins next year.
Well, I mean, we were talking about that to start things off. I mean, like, it is... If you've sat down and just looked at that schedule...
It's daunting.
It's scary, dude. I mean, that's the SEC, though. That's what you signed up for. But just the fact of, going to, or having Alabama and then going to LSU at the end of the season, like, you've got to set yourself up from the get-go in this next season.
Even the quote-unquote winnable road games, there's unknown. I mean, Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas, obviously, a friendly foe. But it's going to be extremely interesting to see just the week in and week out, the grind that everybody talks about when you play in the SEC, how that affects a team that, I guess you could say underachieved a year ago if that's the direction that you wanted to go. But even some of these games that would be considered winnable, you got to win those if you want to get to that 7.5.
And I think the one thing, though, you look at it and everybody's like, well, Tennessee's going to be really good, and LSU's going to be really good, and Alabama's going to be really good. Ole Miss, Missouri, all these teams are going to be really good. The reality is a couple of those teams probably aren't going to be as good as we think they're going to be. And those are the games that you have to go win. Like, if Missouri ends up not being as good as some people anticipate, you have to go win that game. Even if they are good, I think that's a game that a lot of people say you have to beat Missouri. You're a better program than Missouri. I think Ole Miss is going to be good. On paper, they look really good, but that's another game that I kind of circle. I'm like, well, I think OU should win that game. Same with Auburn, and I think getting off to a hot start. I think Carey said that you have to start the season 4-0. Like, I think
there's no slipping coming out of the gate. It's
correct.
It's going to be very bad if you do that.
Yes.
By the way, I think not just it's crazy that those two teams are lined up on OU's schedule, because I think nationally everybody, Josh, is looking to see what's going to happen at Missouri and Ole Miss. Like, essentially, can you buy yourself success? Because everybody that's tried it so far has failed, essentially. I mean, Oregon, not a real failure, but still, I don't know that they've done it to the level that A&M and Miami has done it. And I don't know. It's just, to me, it's almost a moment in the history of college football. Like, if these teams keep being the leaders in NIL acquisitions and they don't have success, it makes people step back and say, you can't really win a college football championship that way, versus what Alabama and Georgia have been doing. You have to, and I believe you have to build a program underneath having great, NIL acquisitions, if you want to call them that. And I'm not sure that, Ole Miss, they had lost 2 games last year, I know. In Missouri was a surprise to me. I mean, I thought Eli Drinkwitz would end up fired by the end of the season. But it's just, to me, it's fascinating, those 2 teams in particular.
Yeah, I mean, guys, you look at Ole Miss and Missouri in recruiting. Last year, Ole Miss was number 19 in the country and Missouri was 21. That's not typically where you view teams that are truly going to compete in the SEC. I mean, that's in the SEC, especially with the addition now of Texas and Oklahoma, that's like 10th, 11th in the league in recruiting, and that's a really hard hill to overcome, even with the NIL stuff, even with all that we know that they've done through the portal and that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, to me, is really interesting. Missouri, I feel like there's a pretty decent foundation there, and they've added pieces. But, you've got Luther Burden coming back. You've got your quarterback coming back. You've got most of your offensive line. Like, there's a lot there that makes sense to me. Ole Miss is exactly what you're talking about, Carey. Like, there are pieces that come back, but you lost your best player, probably in Quinshon Judkins. We don't know exactly what Jackson Dart is, but they've added a lot of great pieces through the portal. But how does that all marry together? And the thing I struggle with them is Lane Kiffin the perfect head coach to navigate that, or the worst possible coach to navigate that sort of circus?
I mean, right now it seems like he's the perfect coach, but when adversity hits, I would go the other way. If they were to start out, 5-2 or 5-3 or whatever, and something, shit kind of hits the fan, I don't know if that's necessarily the guy that you would want navigating you out of those waters.
I disagree, because I think Lane Kiffin is the most could give a shit coach that is out there in college football. And the way that he, went after that kid that tried to file the lawsuit, the $50 million lawsuit for, whatever, emotional distress or whatever, like hearing that tape, it's like, man, that guy really is a football coach. He's not babying people. Like, if someone can bring in a guy like that, I don't think he gives a shit if the donors paid Nolan, $2 million. I'm not saying they did, but like, he's not going to be concerned about his players getting mad because they might transfer. I just don't think he gives it enough of a shit.
Oh, I think that it's more to do. I agree with you on that terms. I think it's more of if shit hit the fan, he would just look elsewhere and be like, I can go do this somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think he's making enough money now where he may just retire. I mean, he might be a guy that in 2 years doesn't even coach football anymore.
I don't know. I think
he's happy being on a boat.
I think he loves the thrill of game day. Like, I think he loves that, of calling plays and designing.
But everybody
shit.
does. I mean, every coach
but I mean,
loves
I don't think
game
he's
day.
Yeah,
it's
but
all the other shit that they can't stand to do.
Yeah, but I think he's also a little bit full of shit when he.
It's kind of like the stuff that we heard at SEC meeting today last summer when he was talking how
he
the portal's
against NIL.
ruining college football, yada yada yada, and then they were the biggest player in the
then
portal.
They embraced it more than anything.
Like, it's a game to him, and I think that he right now certainly is excelling at it.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. I was thinking about this the other day when we were going through the schedule. I guess yesterday with Andy. How many teams on OU's schedule would you take their quarterback over OU's quarterback?
With Jackson, over Jackson
Like for
How
a
many
year?
Just and I'm talking, they can have experience. Like, and you're just how much are you betting on Jackson Arnold next year?
A lot. I think at the end of the day, he has to be good if Oklahoma.
Well, I know we all agree that he has to be good, but I'm saying how much are you betting on Jackson Arnold personally being good? And how many of these guys would you say you're taking definitively over Jackson Arnold next year?
At this point, you can't definitively say he's going to have a better career than Dylan Gabriel had.
No, but Josh just said he's not taking any of. So, I mean, the ones that would obviously stand out, Quinn Ewers, which I wouldn't take Quinn Ewers over Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold's going to be better. Jalen Milroe at Alabama, I think, has a case.
Jackson Dart.
Maybe Jackson Dart.
I mean,
the kid from Tennessee. I think the kid from Tennessee is going to end up being a really good player.
It's just a tough. Yep. It's a tough conversation to have because there is so much unknown. Anything that you're basing, I would take Jackson Arnold off of is purely a belief and a confidence.
The reason he's a 5-star in the first place.
That he's going to be who we think he's going to be.
But that's my point in saying that. I think
Oklahoma fans have been spurned by that before. everybody thought coming out of the Cotton Bowl in 2020, oh, Spencer Rattler's going to have this incredible year in 2021.
Yeah.
Now, do I think that given the same circumstances, I would take Jackson Arnold every time over Spencer Rattler? I think that he has it between the ears a little bit better than what Rattler brought with him from Arizona.
Josh, can we say with certainty that Rhett Bomar was never going to turn out to be the 5-star that he was ranked coming out of high school? I mean, he had his opportunity. He went to Sam Houston State. He got drafted or signed with the Giants. You know, he had an opportunity to be in the NFL, and he wasn't ever that guy.
I think it's like if he was going to be more than he was, like he could have. Like I don't know that I can definitively say that he wouldn't have done it at Oklahoma, because obviously very different circumstances, very different surroundings. But do I think anything he showed me tells me he would have been a better player than Sam Bradford was? Absolutely not. Like I don't think he would have been that caliber of guy. And I know the rankings, that just makes the rankings look a fool. I get it, but it's also, I think people struggle to realize, like 20 years ago, both the process and the number of evaluators was just smaller. Like you just didn't have nearly as many people. And now,
well,
you know,
the offenses were just getting to the point where, you know, quarterbacks were expected to throw the ball that many times a game.
Yeah. Oh, guys, I can remember plenty of games. Like Kevin Sperry is this wild universe that I live in now, where a quarterback throws 18 passes in a game. And I'm so used to this guy, you know, just comic book numbers. You know, he threw 45 times and completed 38 passes or some crazy number like that. And that's what most of these guys live in now. But that wasn't the case back then. So there was such a projection of, well, okay, this is what he'll look like when it is more consistent, or this is what it'll be when he's part of an offense that's run a little differently.
I mean, it was like going back really old days. It was like Tulsa Union that was the first with, what's his name? Former quarterback at OU that transferred to
Fuente.
Justin Fuente, yeah. That was the first time in Oklahoma I remember thinking, like, how is a team throwing the ball this many times in a game? And, you know, it just kind of like South Lake Carroll, Chase Daniel, like they were throwing the ball an inordinate amount of times. I think it might have been Jones that became kind of the first in-state school that just really just developed a reputation for just throwing almost every down. Like their quarterback would have 40, 50 passes in a game, like every week. So like that didn't really exist then like it does now. Now you can find dozens of team in every class that, you know, will throw 40 passes in a game.
Oh yeah. It's almost unusual when you don't anymore, because I mean, and a lot of these coaches, not only do they follow the college and the NFL models, but there's so much more in efficiency numbers. Like this is a more efficient way to run your offense, to just run your, you know, kind of have the entire team built around this idea is a cleaner way for a lot of these high schools. Because especially if you have a quarterback, guys, I mean, if you have a real quarterback, you can beat almost anybody. Jones is a perfect example. You go see Jones and you're not like, oh, look at all these athletes. But they almost always have a really freaking good quarterback, and he gives everybody else trouble. And they're in the state semifinals damn near every year because they just put it in their best player's hands and let him go do work.
I mean, the quarterback position has definitely become one of the hardest things to evaluate. I mean, it's just like Baker. I don't think anybody can disagree. Like Baker Mayfield, you know, you look at Kyler, and I mean, he only had a year, but like comparing Jalen Hurts plays in the NFL. He was nowhere near the quarterback thrower that Baker was when he was in college.
Yeah, but a lot of it, I mean, in the NFL, you get to the NFL, a lot of it depends on the system you get in. I mean, Jalen, there's a reason Jalen was so good the year they went to the Super Bowl, and then he dropped off a little bit.
Well, it's about the people around you.
Yeah, he lost his offensive
at every
coordinator.
level.
Right. But anyways, my point was, going back to Jackson Arnold and the schedule, if we think OU is going to have the best quarterback in every single game this year, and they're returning what we think is a pretty good defense, and they're going to maybe take a step on that side of the ball, they should have a chance to win 9 games next year. Maybe 10 if you play really, really well. And that's my point.
10 is like, yeah, I mean, that might be the ceiling on the season.
10 is the ceiling, I think.
It's just so hard
to... They're in the playoff with 10.
Yes.
Sure.
They might even be in with 9, depending on how the season... I mean, LSU was 9-3 this last year, and they finished 12th, and they would have been in.
Yeah, it's just so hard to project what Jackson Arnold is going to be. I mean, to not put too much pressure on a kid. the season comes down to not only what he does, but is the defense going to be as good as we think it could be? If it is, they have a really good chance. They have a really good chance because I do think that there is a stockpile of talent down here. It just is going to be contingent upon expectation and meeting those expectations. And if they play below that, you are going to look at a 7-5, maybe an 8-4.
Yeah.
By the way, Josh, you know,
And I want to. I just. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna. No, you go ahead on this subject because I had something else I wanted to bring up.
Okay. I was just going to say real quickly, I want to, because I know people will be like, Josh chose Jackson Arnold over Jalen Milroe. That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm just saying I wouldn't definitively say Jackson Arnold is a lesser player than Jalen Milroe. I don't think it's clear cut at the end of this year that I'm going to say Jalen Milroe is a much better player or had a better year than Jackson Arnold.
By the way, here's how difficult it is to evaluate quarterbacks, Josh. I don't think either one of us could claim that we've won the Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence debate. I know there have been times when we said, I'm the winner.
Yeah.
But after last year with Trevor Lawrence, I don't know if he's going to make it as a quarterback in the NFL.
2 years ago, when they get to the playoffs, I'm like, okay, this is over. Fields had that terrible year. Lawrence looked like he was finally starting to turn that corner. And then last year happens, and you're like, well, shit. Okay, here we go again.
It's just a bizarre position to play.
It was a little bit incomplete, though. Like, Lawrence was basically getting murdered every time that he stepped back.
Year. I mean, I'm not saying that that's part of being a quarterback in the NFL, though. I mean, that's what happened to Sam.
Sure.
I mean, he was just getting murdered.
Sure.
Baker was getting murdered.
I think Trevor
Baker had no
Lawrence is going
chance
to
in
be
Carolina.
fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically was a game. He was a game away from playing in a
Fields
Super Bowl.
could be a really good quarterback. I think if you put Justin Fields in Philadelphia, they have a better offense than they do with Jalen Hurts.
Wow.
I believe that.
Wow.
Of course, I'm known to be kind of a Jalen Hurts hater.
If you could have it right now, would you call it even and just walk away from the table if you could have the Lawrence stock, or are you still in on Fields? Like, you still think there's a good chance that pays off?
I think that you're still leading even after Lawrence had the year that he had a year ago.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, he can make really good throws, but the thing that I was most shocked by last year was his inaccuracy, because I don't remember him being that way ever. No, it's just like there's definitely a drop in confidence, because you got to realize he's a kid that never had to go through struggles like this.
Yeah,
and he's just not
for the best team.
It's screwed up his head a little bit. Yeah. But no, anyway, that's a really old argument, but that to me highlights what quarterback evaluating is like.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I thought it was really good, but it does really highlight how ridiculous the SEC is going to be, how hard it's going to be. By the way, did you see Leipold got like $7 million today?
Yeah, and they also announced like $450 million in facility renovations or something. That might have been old. Like,
it used to be like $300 million, and I think they're not playing home games there next year.
They aren't.
Like some are in Arrowhead.
Well, it's split. They're going to have, I think, 2 or 3 games at Arrowhead, and then the other 2 or 3, I can't remember the exact number, is going to be played at the Kansas City MLS stadium.
How wild would it be if Kansas wins a Big 12 championship next year?
I mean,
don't have a home field.
We did have conference or national championship odds come out, and I think that, technically, if you look at the numbers, Oklahoma State has a better chance to get to a college football playoff than Oklahoma does, statistically.
Yeah. I could see why, though.
I mean, the Big 12 is just not as...
So many more landmines in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, if Oklahoma State won the Big 12 next year, it wouldn't surprise me.
If Oklahoma State, yeah.
I thought their odds on the
There's a lot
Big
of people
12 title was not high enough.
It's not. Because they're all grouped in together. So, like, the Big 12 odds, I think they were, like, 5th or 6th best to win the Big 12. But I think the thought process there is if you win the Big 12, you're going to get into the college football playoff. Much easier to do that than run through the SEC.
I think it's going to be. I think Utah's the team to beat though next year.
Utah's going to be really good. I think OSU's going to be pretty good. Kansas is going to be a very fascinating watch to see how they do.
I just don't think the other day. I don't believe in Alan Bowman.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. And maybe they can still win a Big 12 title with Alan Bowman. I just am not I would not bet on it. Like, I think that they could be really good and win 9-10 games and maybe get into the Big 12 championship game, but Alan Bowman's not leading you on a game-winning drive.
Well,
the
reason I said that is because after that Oklahoma game, everybody realized, like, oh, well, we just put a bunch of people in the box and we don't let Ollie Gordon get going.
Yeah.
And Alan Bowman was not good enough to beat other teams in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat teams, but it wasn't his doing.
No. And I think Oklahoma State's going to be pretty good. We've seen this from OSU running backs before where they have a great season and the next year, either they get run into the ground a little bit too much or, teams figure out how to defend them. I just don't know if Ollie's going to have the same impact that he did this last year.
By the way, spring practice starting, I don't think we have an official date that we can say yet.
Soon. Before spring break.
It will be starting, but we will be having some media next week with the football team, which I know a lot of people have been clamoring for on the website. Not at our, it's not our choice. I mean, we just have to allow Brent to decide when he wants his team to talk. But we should be having the situation where we can talk to a lot of the team along with Brent Venables. But all that's still kind of being worked out. But it does sound like we're going to have some nice media opportunities coming up next week. And like I said, I know people on the website have been, upset. Some not. I mean, I think some people get it, but
some don't want us to cover anything.
Yeah, I know. But when you get as big as we are, George, it gets crazier.
Hey, if you don't have haters, you don't have. What is it? What's the saying?
You're doing something right if you have haters.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the haters as well. Josh, I don't know if there's anything coming up for you in terms of being out on the road, scouting, things that you're looking ahead to. I know the Under Armour thing. Is that going to be the next thing that you'll be at?
Yeah, that is the day after OU's that Future Freaks thing on March 9th. So nothing this weekend, but then the next weekend we'll have a junior day and then immediately followed by the content from Under Armour. So and as that gets going, also you're getting more and more schools starting to get out and, less of the off-season lifting and stuff and more out in the field, and they're doing some stuff that we can really go shoot video and make some good content out of. So going to go see guys like Ryan Foje and Aragbo and, definitely here in the Houston area, and then kind of get to Dallas for some of the more bigger name guys. Probably go try and see Fasusi, Haywood, some of those guys.
Okay. I'll say this too. Like, we haven't really talked about all the latest in courts and battles and NIL and employees and stuff like that. But I'm going to say this. Any legislation comes out that says schools can no longer do this during recruiting visits, I'm all for. Because people get upset. Like, there was the one about you can't decorate hotel rooms. I was like, good. Like, that should have been outlawed a long time ago. That just waste everybody's time.
It's a waste of time to worry about it. Is it not? I mean, what's it matter?
I'm just saying the people that are mad, like, oh, look, this is another example how the NCAA's got it all wrong. No, this is the coaches are the ones telling them, please outlaw this because it's wasting our. It's just like the photo shoots and all that stuff.
That's an example, though, of the NCAA worrying about shit that doesn't matter.
Well, there's not a lot they can control right now. But you know how that works. Thing. You know how that works, Eddie. They have coaches' conventions, and they have this was all decided before Tennessee and Virginia blew everything up.
Sure. I just don't think that a coach, that doesn't even come on his radar, what cookie cake's going in a kid's room. That's just an example of the NCAA just trying to do something.
No, but they're the ones that, the coaches are the ones that said, can we cut this shit out? Can we stop it? Because we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it, but everybody else is going to do it. So it's just this, I think it's a vicious cycle. It's something that they're being forced into doing that's stupid and wastes everybody's time.
It just seems like a waste of time to ban something like that. I don't care either way. I don't think a kid's going to pick a school based on how his hotel room was set up. And if he does,
then you're probably sucks.
You're recruiting probably the wrong type of person. It just seems
I'm just for banning all that crap, even photo shoots.
I'm for just disbanding of the NCAA.
Sure, I don't think you're going to find a lot of people that wouldn't before that. What are you going to have in its place, though? That's my concern.
Anything that is headed
you're
by
going to have
somebody.
Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Miami doing whatever they want.
I don't know, Eddie. I know what you're getting at. I don't know if you're also a traditionalist. I don't think you want to see the NCAA just go away because it would change the sport completely.
Sure, if they put something in place that had something of a head, a commissioner or whatever, Nick Saban or whoever wants to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there would be a better structure just within, and of course that, whatever entity that is, they would have to set up, like, these are the rules for NIL. We're going to have there's just so much other shit to worry about. And for the NCAA to do to feel like they have accomplished something just pisses me off when
Here's
they
the
ban. It's just it's
Here's the
fucking
problem,
stupid.
though, you have, Eddie, is that you can get rid of the NCAA. But do you know who the NCAA really is? It's the college presidents. That's who the NCAA is. They're the ones who make all the decisions.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if you're gonna tell me you're gonna go out and separate the athletic department from the university, and that the athletic departments will band together and have a czar, I can get behind that.
Yeah,
but if you're gonna say we're gonna get rid of the NCAA and start over, and we're gonna make a giant bureaucracy that all the presidents are in, you're just recreating another NCAA.
I think that Joe Harris is probably in the mix of presidents, probably that it might just expand to maybe 12 or 13, 14 guys that they know that football is the priority at their school. They're not trying to push.
Stanford's out.
Yeah, like all of those schools need to come to the realization that most of the kids that go play football or athletics just in general, they're not there to go to school. They don't care about classes.
As I've said last week, the players aren't the athletes aren't always in charge of going to school. Like the coaches don't want them taking tough degrees, so they put them in sociology or communications or whatever. They're not. Remember who was the cornerback from Houston that came in as an electrical engineer?
Jordan Thomas, Bob
yeah.
says from the
Oh, yeah.
Bob, I didn't know Bob was still here. But like he was a great student and came in, and we would ask him about that, and all of a sudden he stopped talking about it in a couple of years, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a communications major now." Like it's too difficult. And I'm not saying that schools won't let him, but with all the crap that you have to do as a football player, you don't have time for, unless you're just a genius to do all that stuff.
Walter Rouse. Yeah, I don't know about any of that stuff. I feel like we've had the same conversation like every week.
I know. That's kind of why it's hard to talk about football right now until we get back into spring football, because we might just be going around in circles. So, anyway, it is starting up. We're less than, 2 weeks away, essentially?
Yeah. I think they're going to practice
three weeks.
The week before spring break, which spring break is...
well, it'd be right after the Freaks thing. So, basically, they have the Freaks event, and then practice will start after that.
And then pro days, I think, going to also be around that same time, which should be interesting. There's quite a few guys.
Are you
Drake Stoops, big pro day.
Are you still just, because you don't hate Russell Wilson?
No, I think Russell Wilson's a nice guy,
but
he's just a corny guy.
I'm fascinated with the whole Sean Payton thing, and all these coaches that are trying to talk about their quarterback situation.
Yeah, Sean Payton's a dick. Like that's not even that's a fact.
Not
and
even
I think even if I went up to Sean Payton and said you're a dick, I think he'd be like, yes, I am.
All right.
Also, I just before we go, softball this weekend. Just talked to Joe Castiglione.
Yes.
On a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
He was very good talking about just kind of how the stadium came together, the impact of it for women's sports, as well as the softball program. So I'll have a story on that later. But he also mentioned something in there about they're eventually going to have an open house where fans can come. I think they did that for the football stadium when they first opened up the south end zone, where people could come in and just take a tour of it. Apparently, they're going to do that at some point. It might be after the season, though. So, anyways, interesting stuff from Castiglione. Should be a fun weekend out there.
Full article to come?
Yep.
Okay. All right, go check us out, Soonerscoop.com. If you appreciate the podcast and the YouTube, subscribe. Just go on Soonerscoop.com. log in, become a member. It's worth your time, I promise. Josh?
Yeah, I had one quick shout out I wanted to get out to my guy Cooper Abercrombie up at Bar A Barbecue. We went up there and saw them. It's up in Montgomery, Texas, for those who would want to go by. Met a couple of members while we were there. They just happened to be in the same day that me and the family came through. So awesome barbecue. He was a super good host. Showed the girls around. We saw all the smokers. I knew I didn't know much about smoking, but just hearing like his story, how it all got started, and their whole setup. Like he's up at like 2:30 in the morning starting smoking. I had no idea that it was that lengthy of an involvement. So just a good education on how stupid I am. But also, again, they listen to all the podcasts. They were I literally got recognized by my voice. One of the guys behind the counter goes, "Have you been in here before, man?" I said, No. I think I know why you know me. And they have the podcast running all the time, so they now know all of your voices, and you guys could be recognized while they're blindfolded.
So it looks so good. It looks so good. Yeah. I want to get down there.
Absolutely should. It was some of the best brisket I've ever had. It was really, really good.
That's awesome.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us once again this week. We'll be back again. We've got the I'm trying to think. We've got the stickball coming up on YouTube that we'll maybe hear a little bit more about the Joe C stuff in that as well. Eddie will be out talking to Skip just in a little bit. He's going to head over there. So appreciate you guys listening. Go check us out, Soonerscoop.com/YouTube, Soonerscoop.com. And we'll see you guys back here again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com podcasts.